Welcome back to Footnotes Folly and to Josephus' Antiquities. I am Pemberton. This is Book 11, Part 2. The temple stands, but a temple without a city is exposed, and a people without their law drifts. This part belongs to the two men who fixed that. First Ezra to your Bible, a priest and scholar of the law, who comes from Babylon with the king's blessing and treasure, and confronts the hard problem of a people who have intermarried away their identity. Then Nehemiah, a Jew high in the Persian court, the king's own cupbearer, who hears that Jerusalem still lies open and ruined, and asks leave to go and rebuild it. We will watch him raise the walls in an astonishingly short time, a trowel in one hand and a weapon in the other, against neighbors who jeer and plot. It is the making of the post-exile nation. Let us take up the story.
When Darius died, his son Xerxes took the kingdom. Just as he inherited his father's rule, he also inherited his reverence for God and his honor toward him. In everything related to divine worship, he acted as his father had done, and he was extremely friendly to the Jews. Around this time Josephus, the son of Jeshua, was high priest. There was also in Babylon a righteous man who had a great reputation among the people. He was the chief priest of the people, and his name was Ezra. He was highly skilled in the laws of Moses, and was well known to King Xerxes. Ezra had decided to go up to Jerusalem, and to take with him some of the Jews who were in Babylon. He asked the king to give him a letter to the governors of Syria, so that they would know who he was. The king therefore wrote the following letter to those governors. Xerxes, king of kings, to Ezra the priest and reader of the divine law, greeting. I think it agrees with the law I have for mankind to allow any members of the Jewish nation who wish to go to Jerusalem, together with any priests and Levites in our kingdom who desire to go. I have therefore issued an order for this purpose. Let everyone who wants to go do so, as seems good to me and to my 7 counselors, so that they may examine the affairs of Judea and see whether they agree with the law of God. Let them also take with them the gifts that I and my friends have vowed, together with all the silver and gold found in the country of the Babylonians that has been dedicated to God. Let all of this be carried to Jerusalem for sacrifices to God. You and your brethren may also make as many vessels of silver and gold as you please. You shall dedicate the holy vessels that have been given to you, and any more that you wish to make, taking the expense from the king's treasury. I have also written to the treasurers of Syria and Phoenicia, ordering them to attend to the business for which Ezra the priest, the reader of the laws of God, is being sent. So that God may not be angry with me or with my children, I grant everything needed for sacrifices to God according to the law, up to 100 kori of wheat. I also command you not to impose any deceitful charge or any taxes upon their priests, Levites, sacred singers, gatekeepers, sacred servants, or scribes of the temple. And you, Ezra, according to the wisdom given to you by God, appoint judges who understand the law, so that they may judge throughout Syria and Phoenicia. You must also instruct those who do not know it, so that if any of your countrymen transgresses the law of God, or the law of the king, he may be punished not as someone who sinned through ignorance, but as someone who knew the law and yet boldly despised and scorned it. Such a person may be punished by death or by fines. Farewell. When Ezra received this letter, he was filled with joy. He began to worship God and acknowledged that God had caused the king to show him such great favor. For that reason he gave all thanks to God. He read the letter in Babylon to the Jews who were there, but he kept the letter itself and sent a copy of it to all the members of his nation who were in Media. When those Jews learned of the king's reverence toward God and his kindness toward Ezra, they were all greatly pleased. Many of them even took their possessions and came to Babylon, because they strongly wished to go down to Jerusalem. Yet the whole body of the people of Israel remained in that country. For this reason only 2 tribes in Asia and Europe are subject to the Romans, while the 10 tribes remain beyond Euphrates to this day, an immense multitude that cannot be counted. A great number of priests, Levites, gatekeepers, sacred singers, and sacred servants came to Ezra. He gathered together those who had been in captivity beyond Euphrates, stayed there 3 days, and appointed a fast for them, so that they might pray to God for their safety and suffer no harm on the road, whether from enemies or from any other misfortune. Ezra had already said that he had told the king God would preserve them, and therefore he had not thought it proper to ask the king to send horsemen as an escort. After they had finished their prayers, they departed from Euphrates on the 12th day of the 1st month, in the 7th year of the reign of Xerxes, and they came to Jerusalem in the 5th month of that same year. Ezra then delivered the sacred money to the treasurers, who were from the family of the priests, 650 talents of silver, silver vessels weighing 100 talents, gold vessels weighing 20 talents, and vessels of brass more precious than gold, weighing 12 talents. These gifts had been made by the king and his counselors, and by all the Israelites who had remained in Babylon. After Ezra handed these things over to the priests, he offered to God the appointed whole burnt offerings, 12 bulls for the common preservation of the people, 90 rams, 72 lambs, and 12 young goats for the remission of sins. He also delivered the king's letter to the king's officers and to the governors of Cilicia and Phoenicia. Since they were obliged to obey what the king had commanded, they honored our nation and helped them with everything they needed. All these things were truly accomplished under Esdras' leadership, and he succeeded in them because God considered him worthy of success in his work on account of his goodness and righteousness. Some time afterward, certain people came to him and brought an accusation against some of the multitude, including priests and Levites. They said these men had violated their settlement and broken the laws of their country by marrying foreign wives, and that they had thrown the priestly family into confusion. They asked Esdras to uphold the laws, lest God become angry with all of them together and bring them once more into a condition of calamity. As soon as Esdras heard this, he tore his garment in grief, pulled out hair from his head and beard, and threw himself on the ground, because this offense had reached even the leading men among the people. He considered that if he ordered them to cast out their wives and the children born from them, they would not listen to him, so he remained lying on the ground. However, all the better sort of people came running to him. They too wept and shared in his grief over what had been done. Then Esdras rose from the ground, stretched out his hands toward heaven, and said that he was ashamed to look up toward it because of the sins the people had committed. They had forgotten what their fathers had suffered because of their wickedness. He begged God, who had saved a seed and a remnant out of the calamity and captivity they had endured, restored them again to Jerusalem and to their own land, and caused the kings of Persia to have compassion on them, to forgive the sins they had now committed. Though those sins deserved death, he prayed that it would agree with the mercy of God to remit even this punishment that was due to them. After Esdras said this, he stopped praying. While all who had come to him, together with their wives and children, were lamenting, a leading man in Jerusalem named Jechonias came to him. Jechonias said that they had sinned by marrying foreign wives, and he urged Esdras to make them all swear to put away those wives and the children born from them, and to punish those who would not obey the law. Esdras listened to this advice and made the heads of the priests, the Levites, and the Israelites swear that they would put away those wives and children, according to Jechonias' counsel. After he had received their oaths, he hurried out of the temple into the chamber of Johanan, the son of Eliasib. Since he had not tasted anything at all because of his grief, he remained there that day. A proclamation was then made that all those of the captivity should gather at Jerusalem, and that anyone who did not meet there within 2 or 3 days would be banished from the multitude and have his property assigned to the uses of the temple, according to the judgment of the elders. Those from the tribes of Judah and Benjamin gathered within 3 days, on the 20th day of the 9th month, which the Hebrews call Tebeth and the Macedonians call Apuleius. They sat in the upper room of the temple, where the elders were also present, and they were uneasy because of the cold. Esdras stood up, accused them, and told them they had sinned by marrying wives who were not of their own nation. But now, he said, they would do something pleasing to God and beneficial to themselves if they put those wives away. We will do this. However, the multitude is large, the season of the year is winter, and this work will require more than 1 or 2 days. Therefore let their rulers, and those who have married foreign wives, come here at a proper time, and let the elders of every place, who are to determine the number of those who have married in this way, be present also. They agreed to this plan. On the 1st day of the 10th month they began the inquiry into those who had married foreign wives, and they continued the inquiry until the 1st day of the next month. They found many among the descendants of Jeshua the high priest, and among the priests, Levites, and Israelites, who valued the observance of the law more than their natural affection. These men immediately cast out their wives and the children born from them. In order to appease God, they offered sacrifices and slew rams as offerings to him. But it does not seem necessary to me to set down the names of these men. So when Esdras had corrected the sin concerning the marriages of the persons already mentioned, he restored the practice to purity, and it remained in that condition from then on. In the 7th month, when they were keeping the Feast of Tabernacles and almost all the people had gathered for it, they went up to the open area of the temple, near the gate that faced east. There they asked Esdras to read the laws of Moses to them. So Esdras stood in the middle of the crowd and read the laws aloud, from morning until noon. As the people heard the laws, they learned how they ought to live righteously from then on. But when they thought about their past sins, they were angry with themselves and began to weep, because they understood that if they had kept the law, they would not have suffered all the miseries they had endured. When Esdras saw them in that condition, he told them to go home and stop weeping, because this was a festival, and it was not lawful to mourn on such a day. He urged them instead to begin feasting at once, to do what was proper for a feast and suitable for a day of joy, and to let their repentance and sorrow over their former sins serve as a safeguard, so that they would not fall again into the same offenses. At Esdras' urging they began to feast. After they had kept the feast for 8 days in their tabernacles, they went back to their homes, singing hymns to God and thanking Esdras for correcting the corrupt practices that had entered their settlement. After gaining this honor among the people, Esdras died at an old age and was buried magnificently at Jerusalem. Around the same time Joseph the high priest also died, and his son Eliasib succeeded him in the high priesthood. Now among the Jews who had been carried away captive there was a man named Nehemiah, who was cup-bearer to King Xerxes. One day, as he was walking before Susa, the capital city of the Persians, he heard some strangers who had just arrived after a long journey speaking with one another in the Hebrew language. He went up to them and asked where they had come from. They answered that they had come from Judea. Then he asked them what condition the people were in, and what state Jerusalem was in. They replied that matters were going badly. The walls of Jerusalem had been thrown down to the ground. The neighboring nations were doing great harm to the Jews, raiding the country by day and plundering it, and causing trouble by night. Not a few people had been carried away captive from the country and even from Jerusalem itself, and by day the roads were found full of dead men. When Nehemiah heard this, he wept out of pity for the sufferings of his countrymen. He looked up toward heaven and spoke, "How long, O Lord, will you overlook our nation while it suffers such great miseries, and while we are made the prey and plunder of everyone?" While Nehemiah remained at the gate lamenting in this way, someone told him that the king was about to sit down to supper. So he hurried away just as he was, without even taking time to prepare himself, and went to serve the king in his office as cupbearer. After supper, the king was in a very pleasant mood and more cheerful than usual. He looked at Nehemiah and seeing that his face was sad, asked him why he looked sorrowful. Nehemiah prayed to God to grant him favor and give his words persuasive power, and then answered the king, "How can I, O king, look any other way and not be troubled when I hear that the walls of Jerusalem, the city where my father's sepulchres are, have been thrown down to the ground, and that its gates have been burned with fire? But grant me this favor. Let me go and build its wall and finish what remains to be done on the temple." The king gave him a sign that he freely granted what he had asked. He also told Nehemiah that he would carry a letter to the governors, so that they would give him proper honor and provide whatever help he needed, in whatever way he desired. "Put away your sorrow then, and from now on be cheerful as you perform your office here." Nehemiah worshipped God and thanked the king for his promise. The joy he received from the king's promises cleared away the sadness and gloom from his face. The next day the king called for him and gave him a letter to carry to Edus, the governor of Syria, Phoenicia, and Samaria. In it the king ordered Edus to give Nehemiah proper honor and supply him with whatever he needed for his building work. When Nehemiah came to Babylon, he took with him many of his countrymen who willingly followed him, and he arrived at Jerusalem in the 25th year of the reign of Xerxes. After he had shown the letters to God, he gave them to Edus and the other governors. He then called all the people together at Jerusalem, stood in the middle of the temple, and addressed them. "You know, O Jews, that God has continually kept our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in mind, and because of their righteousness he has not stopped caring for you. Indeed, he has helped me gain this authority from the king to raise up our wall and finish what is still lacking in the temple. Therefore I ask you, since you know well the hatred our neighboring nations have for us, and since you know that once they realize we are serious about building they will come against us and devise many ways to obstruct our work, first put your trust in God, who will assist us against their hatred. Do not stop building either night or day, but use every effort and hurry the work forward now that we have this special opportunity." After saying this, Nehemiah ordered the rulers to measure the wall and divide the work among the people according to their villages and cities, assigning each portion according to what each group was able to do. He also promised that he himself and his servants would help them. Then he dismissed the assembly. So the Jews prepared for the work. This is the name by which they have been called from the day they came up from Babylon. It is taken from the tribe of Judah, which came first to those places, and from that tribe both the people and the country received the name. But when the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Samaritans, and all the inhabitants of Cilicia heard that the building was moving forward rapidly, they were deeply offended. They began laying traps for the Jews and trying to hinder their plans. They killed many Jews and looked for a way to destroy Nehemiah himself by hiring foreigners to murder him. They also frightened and disturbed the Jews, spreading rumors that many nations were ready to march against them. In this way the people were harassed, and they almost gave up the building. Yet none of these things could keep Nehemiah from working diligently. He only placed a number of men around himself as a bodyguard, and then persevered tirelessly, treating every hardship as nothing because of his desire to complete the work. With great care and foresight he watched over his own safety, not because he feared death, but because he was convinced that if he died, the walls would never be raised for his fellow citizens. He also ordered the builders to keep their ranks and wear their armor while they worked. So the mason wore his sword, as did the man who carried the building materials. Nehemiah also ordered their shields to be kept very close by, and he stationed trumpeters every 500 feet. He commanded them that if the enemies appeared, they should signal the people, so that the workers could fight in their armor and the enemies would not fall upon them unarmed. Nehemiah himself went around the circuit of the city by night. He was never discouraged, either about the work or about his own food and sleep, for he used those things not for pleasure but only for necessity. He endured this strain for 2 years and 4 months, because that was how long it took to build the wall. It was completed in the 28th year of the reign of Xerxes, in the 9th month. When the walls were finished, Nehemiah and the multitude offered sacrifices to God for the building of them, and they continued feasting for 8 days. When the nations living in Syria heard that the wall had been completed, they were angry about it. But when Nehemiah saw that the city had too few people in it, he urged the priests and Levites to leave the countryside, move into the city, and remain there. He built houses for them at his own expense. He also commanded the part of the people who worked the land to bring the tithes of their fruits to Jerusalem, so that the priests and Levites would always have enough to live on, and would not abandon the divine worship. They willingly obeyed the regulations Nehemiah established, and by this means Jerusalem became more fully populated than it had been before. After Nehemiah had done many other excellent and praiseworthy things in a glorious way, he reached a great age and died. He was a man of good and righteous character, very eager to make his own nation happy, and he left the walls of Jerusalem as an everlasting monument to himself. These things were done in the days of Xerxes.
And we will halt there, with the walls of Jerusalem rebuilt, the law read out and renewed, and the little nation secure and ordered once more under good men. The setting now shifts from Judea to a Persian palace far to the east, and to a story with no temple and no prophet in it at all, only a hidden Jewish girl, a proud villain, and a knife's edge of fate. Next time, in part 3, the whole story of Esther the beauty who became queen of Persia, her cousin Mordecai, the genocidal vanity of Haman, and the turning of the tables. Mind the footnotes, and beware the folly.